55 point, I think 6. But even then, the NDC moved to over 70%. Then we had rebasing, or we rebased the economy. It came to 55, but they used the same to appraise ours, so which means ours was worse. But something, in which context we are talking about? We had a situation in the history of this world that Ghanaians were asked to stay home, but they were paid. Public and civil servants. After a few months, they were running shit for almost 21 months. We had revenue shortfall of over 12 billion. Private sector sacked over 40,000 people, losing payees and then losing corporate taxes. And then the whole world, debt to GDP, moved to 238%.
Therefore,
I'm coming.
Therefore, what the president told us is not the true state of the nation.
I think we move beyond. No, I'm coming. All the parameters, most of them, we have done better than he handed over to us. So if you want to appraise, there should be a reference point.
Stephen, we have gone over this kind of arguments over and again for how many years? So the point is that we are discussing the true state of the economy.
And I'm giving you the figures.
Wait.
For economics, you deal
with the true state of the nation. What you are saying are matters we are familiar with.
But they are the matters.
Do they change the state of the nation as presented by the president? Do they change it?
No, they show that the president did not present the actual state of the economy. Because something, let me tell you, this same economy that we are talking about went so bad because of global crisis. You can take or not. You can't say solely, but largely. And the world figures and the world's economic performance indicate and exonerate our government. This is a fact. You can say whatever it is. I've given you the figures from IMF. You can check.
Can you point to, you know, we're having a discussion.
I know, but at least when I make a point.
It's not a monologue. Hold on.
Something.
Hold on.
When I make a point, then you can come.
Steve, hold on. Steve, hold on.
I'll lose my thought.
That's how we do it. That's how we do it. Hold on. Can you point to a figure put out by the president against any sector which was wrong?
A figure?
Yeah.
The president put up. Something.
He said, Esla, there was a collection of over
so how could you
40.
So how could you say that was
45 billion?
What were we using Esla for? Look at some of the obligations we had to use Esla to perform in terms of even performing our debt obligations. What happened 2023 August? We were able to perform that obligation in terms of paying our bondholders. February 2024, August 2024, at least we had not misused. The fact that you have a fund, that you think the money in it is not enough, does not mean that we had misused the money. But what the president is saying, there are figures that are far better than he handed over. Right now, if you leave this place and we hand this place over to another manager, what happens? We take stock. You left two things. The time the second manager is leaving, are they one? Is it one or three? And we are saying that all the performance indicators, most of them, exonerate us and indicate that the economy that we left for them is far, much more stable and restored. I'm not saying there are no challenges. And I've given you, and even the underlying causes, the context we are talking about, means this government, we've done so much. You
heard my question. My question was, if what the president presented is not the true state of the nation, you see, I've been sitting here for over a decade on this show. I'm used to this hackneyed, repeated way of doing these things, that a president presents the state of the nation. Then the opposition say, we are coming to present the true state of the nation. What I want you and I to do differently is, can you point to one figure, one statement, you can move from figure, that he made
that does not reflect the current state of the economy? The sinking fund, which is called the reserve fund, he says at the time he left office, we had in the dollar account as much as 250 million. What is left in that fund today is $64,000.
Were we supposed to use the fund when the need arises or not? Something, you're also not getting me right. Listen, you called me, allow me to also speak. Why didn't the president talk about the GDP we left? The primary balance that we left? Why did the president talk about agriculture that we left?
You're not answering my question.
Why? No, because you're also not asking the right question.
If you decide that you will not answer my question,
because the question you are asking in the context of economics is not right. You've asked me, even talking about debt, okay, it is always a continuous process. Even the time he's quoting might not have been the time we are talking about. And I've said that what he quoted as of that time, I didn't have the figure exactly. What you need to find out is that what constitutes a state or the state of economy or an economy. Where are the performance indicators, relevant ones? Because I'm talking about the GDP. I'm talking about agriculture. I'm talking about industry. I'm talking about services. I'm talking about primary balance. I'm talking about reserve. These are key.
All these things.
These are key.
What did the president speak about or give a figure about? That is not the current state of
the economy. But did the president give figures?
That's my question.
No, the president did not give figures, in my opinion, unless because sometimes you move out. Figures that were showing that the economy we left generally is better than what they also handed over to us. So something, if you can allow me to explain, I'm also saying that Phyllis is here. He can challenge and they will all go and do fact finding. Whether the GDP we left for NDC government is not higher than 2016, what they left for us. Whether agriculture, whether industry, whether services, whether primary balance, which shows the fiscal strength of your economy when it's positive. That's what we left for them. So some of the parameters...
This economy that has been rated junk. You are telling Ghanaians here.
By who?
This economy, you've forgotten what this economy has gone through.
You are talking about 2022. You are not talking about 2024. And 2022...
This economy that is paying DDEP and it is saddled with it until 2020 what?
Can I explain this thing to you? DDEP is unfortunate. And I side with those who went through that unfortunate period. I mean the holders. But let me tell you, bring any professor in the world to debunk what I'm saying. When there's a holdout in this situation, okay, the only way out is to restructure the debt, deal with the extension of the maturity date and the payment terms so you can make time to pay. But it is very unpalatable to the victims or the bondholders all over the world. It's not only Ghana it has happened. Okay. The problem with our country is that, for instance, you're a lawyer, a great lawyer. When you're talking about something about law, I should be able to allow you. I'm not saying it doesn't mean I can't ask questions. But when somebody understands something and is explaining, and we don't want to accept the reality of it, it's like a doctor diagnosing.
No. I'm not going to buy law books. I'm going to buy Kinky at the same place that you go and buy the Kinky, and I know what is happening to it. I go to change money. I need to travel. I need dollars. I know what the circumstances. So that cannot be that because I am not an economist or a finance person, I can't appreciate the circumstance.
You move to another area. You can, but let me explain to you. If you had a global crisis, your inflation rate went to 54.1 and it's been able to be reduced to 23%. Something. Can you also use the global performances of these indicators as reference point and see whether Ghana is doing well or not? And I'm also saying that what was handed over to us, most of the primary macro indicators, then one would have also said that now Dunso is back. One would have said that public service workers and then civil service workers, even including health and education, essential services workers, are being sacked. So you are talking about the economy today we are talking about. The only way you can accept what the president said, or NDC, those in government...
Health and education, nobody is being sacked.
No, I have a letter, unless it's fake.
No, I think they've confirmed to us nobody is being sacked.
But I have a letter that I'll show to you.
Okay.
That my constituent is at home now. Unless they are lying to me, I'll give the letter to you, then you find out. But whatever it is, you made a good point advising both MPP and DC on such unfortunate behaviors. I was a CEO, at least Adam, my younger brother NDC MP, can call and attest to the fact that when I was sent there, the same he came to me that he knew they were going to be sacked, so he was going. I said, no, stay, unless you want to go anytime free. Some people abuse. It doesn't mean even President Mahama is interested in what is happening. And that's why it's good you called on him.
But when it comes to the economy, the figures are here. Now, if you want to translate that into practicality, anytime NDC guys and MPP guys are in power and they are touting themselves of economic macro indicators, especially when they are doing well, they say in our pocket. When they are not doing well, it's an issue. But let me explain to you technically today. Our market is basically SMEs, about 90%. Then we call something defensive market economy, which means that when even the economic indicators are doing well, it takes a long time for people to feel that lag time, unlike the aggressive sectors. So the people are not wrong complaining, but the system we have here is also not wrong because it takes a long time. So these things are there.
Okay.
But what we can say this morning is that in terms of all the parameters that we can use to judge whether economy is doing well or not, how many of them? The president should have then mentioned GDP. Why didn't he mention? The president should have mentioned agriculture, industry, services, primary balance, reserve that we had, even nominal value.
Okay.
The president only mentioned inflation, which we are about 23, and they left 15.4. Why was he doing that? So you couldn't have pick just an area, an agency, and say that the entire economy is bad.
Thank you.
That is not true.
Now, you know,
that is not true.
Take a breather. Now, Felix, the president says that I, John Dramani Mahama, will fix the economic crisis confronting our country and reset it on a path of growth and prosperity. He spoke about how we are saddled with staggering debts and glaring signs of almost deliberate and in some cases criminal mismanagement of our resources. How even the IMF restraint was not enough to, as it were, get the MPP government to be prudent in how they did what they have to do. I've asked Stephen and gave up trying to get him to point me to like one specific figure which is not a true state of the economy, which will then give basis for what they are trying to do, which is the true state of the economy. In fact, after the president's presentation, Stephen was the minority group who led the presentation of what he called the true state of the economy to the press. You are not telling the country the truth. For now, I don't know which parts you are not telling us the truth about because he has not pointed me to it. What is it?
But something, he will never be able to point you to any because there's none. Is he?
So the figures I've given,
Stephen, please
prove me wrong.
Please.
Something I think we are using.
I kept quiet when you were speaking.
We are not using the right.
I am not going to allow this. I'm not going to allow
this. And you will do to him what he did.
Absolutely.
To you.
I think that
you will do to him what he did.
Ground
to you.
rules.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's right.
I'm sorry.
Please go on. Go on.
This is
Article 67 imposes an obligation on every president, and you are the lawyer. My brother is also a lawyer. To give an account.
It's written in English. We don't have to be lawyers to understand it. Go ahead.
So, a president can go to parliament and spend all the time speaking about what he inherited, and he would have fulfilled the constitutional obligation. Not so. But in this instance, the president said that he was not going to dwell on lamentation. He actually went out, if you read the 59-page statement that he put out, to speak about specific interventions that he will be putting in place in almost every sector that he touched on. So not only did the president miss the constitutional obligation, he actually inspired hope in those who were looking for something beyond just indicating what he came to meet. Samson, let me also put it on record that if my brother here tells you that this economy we inherited is better than the one we left them to exist in, it is a palpable untruth. Look, even at a visceral level, what you feel in your gut, that alone is sufficient to tell everybody that this economy is rotten to the core. Something we have only recently engaged in domestic debt exchange, which is the harshest economic policy ever implemented under the Fourth Republic, if not the entire history of Ghana. They took 1.3 million people through excruciating hardships by telling them that money that they were expecting to receive from government after having bought bonds were not going to come. They were going to reduce drastically the interest rate that they had agreed with government, and they were going to extend the maturities. This took 1.3 million people through hell, including Kama. You remember his lamentation on a public platform. May God rest his soul. So even at a visceral level, everybody who has lived in this country knows that this economy cannot be better than what they inherited in 2016. Now let's look at the figures. Something there's good reason why the president did not dwell on all the economic indicators. There are about 18 of them. In due course, on 11th March, when the finance minister presents his budget, he will go into details about the specific indicators. If you take out the growth rates, all the rest are worse than what they inherited. Indeed, you recall that after the cabinet session, the first cabinet session, I gave a briefing where I indicated that the numbers are far worse than they even put out. Some say it is not true that they left a positive primary balance. It is not true. They set a target of 0.5%, which is supposed to be a surplus. And if you know what the primary balance is, it is simply, crudely speaking, your deficit minus interest payments. Because that is statutory. You don't have a leeway. The deficit that they projected for in 2024, they exceeded by a wide margin. The primary balance, if I give you the figure, the market will shake today. It is not true that they left a surplus. They left a negative, far worse than what they projected. Something nobody put a gun to their head to project that they will get 18% inflation at the end of 2024. They got 23%, which is far worse than what they projected. When they came to power, they met a public debt of 120 billion. We all know the song and dance that Baumia and his colleagues in the MPP made over our public debt. When they were leaving, it was 721 billion. Even then, it was because we had some debt write-off recently, after the domestic debt exchange. They had to supplicate before our lenders to let go of our $2.8 billion in debt. That is how come we even have 721. Debt to GDP ratio, we left 55.6. 2 years ago, it was 104%. The gulf is wide. Now, it is in excess of 70%, which is far above the threshold. And in fact, when it comes to debt to GDP ratio, as I was talking, I had been comparing our debt to GDP ratio to other countries. Something, the figure is even not the issue. Please. Yes, but I did not interrupt when you were making that point. You compared us to countries that have 280% debt to GDP ratio. Something, you are talking about countries that borrow sometimes at 0.5%. You borrow at 9%. But when you come to debt, the real issue is your ability to repay. And it was glaring that you couldn't pay. That is why you asked bondholders to forfeit about 240 billion Ghana cedis to you in your domestic debt exchange program. You have gone to external lenders to ask them to take a haircut because you can't pay your debt. At the time you took over in 2016, we could pay our debt and still have some to deal with domestic problems. You could not pay it. So how does anybody look at this economy and tell you that it is better than what they inherited? That is dishonesty. And you see, it is one thing to have mismanaged the economy, but to gaslight people, look in the face of Ghanaians and tell them things that they know to be untrue, is to add insult to injury. And it is little wonder that you suffered the electoral defeat that you suffered. Why? The people of Ghana have voted clearly on what they think the state of the economy is. And that's why I said that even if you put aside the figures that I've given you and did a visceral assessment of our economy, it is glaring. Now let's talk about the debt. Look, ECG alone.
Wait, hold on with those.
Yes.
ECG, Cocoa Board, and the rest.
Yes.
Hold on. Was the president being faithful to the situation, our true situation, when he referred to the sinking fund,
Yes.
what you call the reserve funds?
Yes.
And left out what Dr. Kabiru Tia Mahama refers us to, that he should have referred to what the Treasury main account, where there was an end-of-year revenue of 3 billion Ghana cedis. There was also 700 million from Treasury bill subscriptions issued in January that remained unused. Additionally, in January alone, the government received 6 billion cedis due to late payment from December. He's saying that there are other sources that the president ought to have been referring to if he wanted to be fair to the facts, rather than just stick to the one part of what he calls a sinking fund and say he left $250 million and the dollar account now is left with only 64,000.
When sometime last 2 weeks I put out a statement indicates that the president has authorized the finance minister to do two things: make sure that he pays off bondholders on 18 February and build buffers towards retiring maturing debts in July and August. The immediate response of the MPP was that they had left buffers. Now, what is a buffer? It is simply earmarked money aimed at a specific activity which is paying debt. That is what it is. All the monies in the accounts you are talking about are monies meant for other things. They were not meant for debt repayment. The account into which you pay money, you keep money to repay debts, at least since 2015, when the NDC established it, is the debt service reserve account, which we popularly call the sinking fund. So when you say you have left buffers, you must indicate exactly what buffers you've left and what it is for. This account, I have the account details here. I've printed all of it. This is a dollar denominated account. This is the CD denominated account. The last transaction that they did in that account, if you take the dollar component, was on 22nd October 2024. After that transaction, the balance in that account was $64,387. And we are talking about payments totaling 15 billion if you add the July and August maturities to it. If you are going to pay 15 billion, do you use $64,000? If you look at the CD account, the last transaction was on 2nd January. After that, the balance was 155 million. We are talking 15 billion Ghana cedis in payment, 6 billion for the maturities that occurred on 18 February, and then 9.2 billion for those that would occur in July and August. And you are talking about Treasury main account and some 700 million, which were not earmarked funds for debt repayment. Look, since we've been in power, in the last 6 weeks, 52 billion Ghana cedis of the debt that they left has been due for payment. I saw that my friends and co, he was in parliament claiming that we had borrowed 59 billion to create the impression that today if you pick that public debt, we've added 59 billion Ghana cedis to it. That is not true. All that the Minister of Finance did was to do the routine rollover of maturing debt, which simply means that you go to the treasury market and take money to replace the debt that you are paying. Now we are even doing it at a lower interest rate. So when you look at the public debt, it has not moved. The net effect is zero.
There's a question almost all of them were asking when I watched them speak to the press. In less than 2 months, where did you get the money from to do what you are doing if they didn't leave you that money?
People have not stopped paying taxes since they left office, have they? That's what they call teaming. Taxes. Have people stopped paying taxes in Ghana? I've also told you that the finance minister has been doing operations on the T-bill market. If you go and put money for general expenditure, goods and services and what have you, in accounts, and somebody comes and creates a reserve to repay funds, you don't say that you have left money for debt repayment. Their specific response was that they left money for debt repayment. That is what they, is that not the claim they made?
Right, that's what they say.
So where is the money that they left to repay debt? Goods and services money is not for debt repayment.
They have consistently made how many? About 3 payments so far.
So
and they did not.
They borrowed money to pay $324 million, which was due for payment in January. Since then, they didn't make any provision for future debt payments. And the account that you put money in for that purpose is this one: Debt Service Reserve Account, as the name implies. So when he tells you that they left money for debt repayment, it's not true. Number 2, we have not borrowed 59 billion, or we've not added 59 billion to the public debt. The net effect on the public debt remains the same. As for rolling over maturities, it is something that he used to do as Deputy Minister of Finance, and he knows it. So why do you go out and mislead the public and create a false narrative just to justify the parlous state of the economy that you left? Something, how do you tell me that an economy in which, I beg your pardon, in the next 4 years, will be required to pay 280 billion Ghana cedis next year alone, we expect tax revenue of just above 200 billion Ghana cedis. 180 billion of that will go into debt servicing because of the debts that they left. ECG alone owes 68 billion. When you asked him about ESLA, he was all over the place. When they came, total debt owed in the energy sector was 10 billion. We had even paid about 2 billion out of it already. They've collected 45 billion Ghana cedis in the last 8 years in ESLA. And yet, they've left a debt of 70 billion in the energy sector, including what ECG owes. Cocoa Board owes 32 billion Ghana people promised to deliver a certain amount. They didn't deliver it. So they've squandered the money and yet they didn't supply the beans. So now every cocoa tonnage that we have to produce this year, part of it must be committed to the debt that they created. Because of that, the cocoa sector is losing $840 million.
Okay.
We lose $4,000 on each ton of cocoa that is produced this year because of the agreements they made.
Right. And
Look,
when you
go to the road sector alone, if you take out the debt of 21 billion that they left in terms of certificates that have been presented for payment, they've made commitments of over 105 billion Ghana cedis, some of which that didn't have commencement certificates. And yet they awarded contracts to contracts. Some of them have moved onto the site. Others have not shown up. But we have to find 105 billion Ghana cedis.
the president said 85% of contracts awarded in road sector have stalled, and over 20 billion was the debt
Absolutely.
in that area.
Yes, so
you are mentioning 100 plus.
this is when I say commitment. The government says, Stephen, go and do this road. This is the volume of the contract. Samson, go and do this road. This is the volume of the contract. Once it remains on your books, it becomes a commitment. You have committed yourself. You see, you have committed yourself to pay. It amounts to 105 billion. Meanwhile, you don't have 105 billion sitting anywhere to pay.
Steve, I can hear you. I can hear you complain to my friend. I'll come to you shortly.
Look,
I'll come to you shortly. Now, listen.
The health sector alone.
Listen.
If you go to the health sector alone,
Hold on for me.
It's
Steve,
your show, but when it
so,
comes
so
to allow me
listen.
I'm being honest.
Stephen, anytime you come on this show, you have this complaint. Let me tell you. Anytime you come on this, Stephen, wait. Anytime you come on this show, you have this complaint. Do you know why? It is not because I am the problem. That, as a matter of fact, I'll tell you.
But let the viewers also
if you check the period, now listen, wait. And you see, this is how the work goes. Viewers, Felix is not coming here claiming that the things the president said are not true. So I will not have too many questions for him. It is Stephen who claims that the things the president said are not true. And for which matter,
explain why.
They will hold a press conference again after what he actually did after the president presentation to tell us about the true state of the economy. So he will have to take a number of questions from me. And a primary question I asked him, I still am waiting one simple answer to it. He didn't give.
I think I answered you.
You did not.
You didn't want to.
So Felix,
Felix, wait.
So
let me go on.
And in fact, you spend more time than he has.
Something, yes.
Okay.
Something.
Yeah.
It's not sector alone. If you put all their commitments together, they owe 15 billion Ghana cedis in the health sector alone. If you go to the communication sector, 3 billion Ghana cedis. Even the defense ministry owes 3 billion Ghana cedis.
The question we are asking now is, in the face of all of this, the president says, I will fix this
Absolutely.
economy. How is he going to do it?
He's going to do it. First of all, you have to be prudent in the way that you spend resources. You don't take money and spend all of it on consumption like they were doing. Having all manner of programs with fanciful names and throwing money down the drain. So he said that first of all,
they squandered. Then now you say they are throwing money down the drain.
Look, in the last 8 years, if you use the same measure that Baumia used to assess the NDC government in terms of how much revenue came into the kitty, we had about 250 billion Ghana cedis between 2009 2016. They got almost 1 trillion Ghana cedis. And yet they saddled us with this sort of debt. President Mahama says that we have to be prudent. So there will be significant cuts from the beginning, starting with the size of government. Samson, I am government minister responsible for communications, right? Government communications. There was a ministry that used to do that. They had 76 people managing government information alone. Today there's me, there's my deputy Shamima, and less than 5 people involved in the management of government information. So that is a cut there. So there are 60 ministers. At a point, they had 125, and you lamented it to the hilt, and nothing was done. When they were leaving, they had almost 80. They are 60 now. They had 336 political appointees, which, if you added to over the 600 civil servants and officers of the president, ran into 1,000. President Mama says he will have none of that. We will come nowhere near that figure under him. Of course, you can't do much about the civil servants.
So it's okay.
But at least the political appointees, you can do something about. And then the resources that we get will be used judicial. Look at what is happening with the national service. Something.
Right. We'll go there.
Let me land.
We'll go there. National service is a separate matter.
No,
thank you. Thank you.
That's fine.
Now, Bobby, I'm going to come to you for very brief comment. You gave me the caveat before we started that you didn't even want to talk about this. But, we are lawyers, but we live in the economy. So we feel what goes on, and you do a lot of transactional issues and so on. So I'll come to you to make a brief commentary. But I'm going back to Stephen because he was making certain points which meant that he had the reactions to make. So, Stephen, in the next 5 minutes, I'm not going to ask you a simple question. Arrow the things you want to talk about and speak to us about them quickly.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. Samson, in economics or finance, it is totally wrong for anybody to just dwell on nominal figures without talking about assets. That's why we talk about debt to GDP. Whether you want to accept or not is a fact. 2, when you are talking about a debt component, it is always emotional process. That is why it's very difficult if somebody gives a figure at a time that you don't have because you are not in government, you can say it's good or bad. Thirdly, Samson, true state of the economy couldn't have been only dependent on one agency's financial issue. That is totally unacceptable. It's never true anywhere in the world. We have key performance indicators that will let Ghanaians know or the world know whether the economy is good or bad. And it starts with the GDP. My brother Felix, honorable, right now accepted the fact that GDP growth is better than 2016. And it sums up everything. It sums up everything. The question is, how come the president was talking about the state of the economy and mentioned only inflationary rate? How? How come? Tell me, no allow us. Come back to Cocoa Board. You see, in this world, I'm a sinner, but I believe in God. You can lie to the whole world. Everybody will believe you, but there are consequences. Why do you paint a picture as if Cocoa Board, what is happening is unheard of or is worse situation? The rollover issue, NPP government or administration came to meet almost 200,000 tons from our brothers from the NDC. It's not like somebody took money and then will not supply the cocoa. What they do is they conduct a research, and based on the projections, they go to the market and sell with the anticipation that they are taking this money for the projections they have. When you have a very bad weather, such we had our time, you may not even get up to the number. As I'm talking to you now, the same period, Cote d'Ivoire is having this same rollover issue, about 500,000 tons. NDC the same. So it's a natural issue with Cocoa Board. Now you come to road, and the NDC, 1 kilometer of road, even that time, was costing Ghana over $444,000 per kilometer. Ours is less than 300,000. So go and check all these facts and figures. Why are they not talking about the fact that under our regime or administration, we have been able to cultivate about 40,000, I think, hectares or acres of cocoa for Ghana to benefit from. We want to do 70 and it's ongoing. Why are they not talking about that? We put measures in place like that. We are no longer doing even syndication. And we're able to, within 4 or 5 months, get Ghana over $500 million through Bank of Ghana. These facts are there. Now talk about Defense Ministry. How can you talk about monies incurred at a ministry and you not talk about what the money was used for? This is highly mischievous. You can call the Defense Ministry. Something, all the list, unprecedented things we've had here, just to protect and preserve and make sure that we live in a sub-region that all our neighbors are engaging in war. That makes us highly insecure. And the army or defense ministry, through the army leaders authority, approach government. The NDC MPs in government today were part of the meetings. If they care to know, you can call Honorable Atoforsen. You can call all the ranking members, defense ministry and finance. We're all together. They enumerated the things that if we don't get, Ghana was sitting on a very serious. Listen, then we got money to buy these things. They are all here. Over 150 armored personnel, whatever. Over 100 armored personnel days. Over 20 ships days. They are all here. So how can you come and tell the world that we have incurred this debt as if we have taken the money not to use for the right purpose? Something.
Your time is up.
Are we still not? I'm sorry. I want to wind up. Thank you. Are we still not paying billions of cedis every month that Ghanaians are supposed to pay as emolument? Are we still not, rolling up these major pro-poor policies? What are we talking about? So we think that a better economy is one that seems that the GDP growth is giving us great indications. Our reserve, our primary balance, you can ask any professor who wants to be honest with God. Then, even pro-poor policies that are benefiting Ghanaians, in kind and cash, they are all going on. But if you're talking about an area, be honest with yourself that MPP government did not take money and did not provide or produce the cocoa.
Just 2 minutes.
Absolutely.
That is not true.
Again, my brother keeps on harping about the GDP growth. I've told you that there are 18 indicators. Nobody doing proper analysis of the economy uses one.
Industry, services,
the most critical.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think you have to be fair.
Yes,
and respect
right.
viewers.
No, Minister, you are right.
Something. The most critical, if you want to assess whether the economy has been properly run, is the deficit and primary balance. That information. But in the budget, which will come in about 2 weeks, he will put it out. Look, they did 800% worse than they had projected for the primary balance.
Sorry.
So it is not true when he tells you that they left a positive primary balance. It is not. They left it in the negative by a wide margin. Again,
better than
this talk about road cost is not true. Look, Samson, you can ask people at the road ministry. It costs $1 million today to do 1 kilometer of asphalt. In some instances, it costs 1.2 million. If they came to me 300,000, they were doing far better. So again, it is not a defense. No. He has also not been able to defend the debt.
Which debt?
Look, you have run a country into a debt so that you yourself have told the whole world that you cannot pay debt that you owe. You have had to go around begging. Look, what they're
saying, don't discount Ukraine and COVID.
But look, Ukraine itself, how much debt do they have? Ukraine itself, how much debt do they have? Why? Was Ghana the only, in fact, to quote Baumia's Palance, did COVID jump over Côte d'Ivoire, Togo, Benin, and come to Ghana alone? What is the state of debt of all the countries surrounding us compared to ours? It was because of recklessness due to elections in 2020. You would have thought that because of the experiences we had after 2020, they would have learned lessons. But they have repeated the same thing in the 2024 elections. And that is how come we are having the outturns that we are having with the deficit and the primary balance. Every other indicator that matters has gone south. So my brother cannot defend that record. Indeed, they were clad in black in parliament. And I remarked to the majority leader that it is obvious that they are mourning the state of the country that they left us. Because if you run a country like this, perhaps you should wear sackcloth and sit in ash.
Let's see those pictures in Parliament as we wrap up. Yes, Bobby, I don't know what you will have to say briefly about it.